I had it all on paper: the man, the success, and a penthouse with a clear view of San Francisco Bay spread out beneath me. 3 years ago, at the largest charity gala my company had ever hosted, she stood in front of nearly 200 people, smiled sweetly, and said, "Poor Sophia. 34 years old and still married to her job." Then she added, "Meanwhile, I'm planning a destination wedding with Ryan. I guess some women just know how to keep a man." That night I smiled back. And it wasn't fake. It was a real smile. Because standing right next to me, his hand resting firmly and protectively on the small of my back, was Alexander Chun, the tech entrepreneur whose company had just been valued at $800 million. He was also the man who'd just beaten Ryan's law firm in the biggest acquisition deal of the year. The moment I waved Alexander over and said his name, she knew exactly who he was. Her champagne glass shook in her hand. Her smile disappeared. All the color drained from her face in seconds. But I'm getting ahead of myself. This story really starts years earlier. Christina had been my best friend since freshman year at Berkeley. We survived brutal late-night study sessions, awful boyfriends, and the unforgiving architecture program together. For years, she was the sister I never had. She was the first person I called with good news and the one who sat beside me, holding my hand, through my mother's cancer treatments. 20 years of friendship, built on what I truly believed was unbreakable trust. When I met Ryan Mitchell 3 years ago at a legal conference for my firm, I honestly thought I'd found everything I'd ever wanted. He was a senior partner at Morrison & Hayes, one of the most prestigious law firms in San Francisco. Ryan was confident, well-spoken, and ambitious. He wore tailored suits, spoke with certainty, and always knew exactly which wine to order. My father, before he passed away, would have approved of him without question. Every time I mentioned Ryan's name, Christina seemed to light up. She'd lean forward, eyes wide, asking nonstop questions about our dates, our plans, and our future together. At the time, I thought she was just being a supportive friend, genuinely happy for me. Love had never come easily to her. She moved from one relationship to the next, and none of them ever really lasted. I wanted her to believe that good men existed, that real love was possible. Now looking back, the signs feel painfully obvious. I see all the moments I brushed off and explained away. The way she'd touch Ryan's arm when she laughed at his jokes, her fingers staying there just a second too long. How she always insisted on sitting beside him at dinners, finding reasons to lean in close. The night she showed up at my apartment wearing a brand new dress, asking if it looked good, fully knowing Ryan was about to come over. I kept telling myself she just wanted to feel included, that she was lonely, that I was lucky to have a best friend who got along so well with my boyfriend. God, I was so naive. The night everything fell apart began like any other ordinary night. I was working late at the firm, finishing the final drawings for a mixed-use development project that could define my career. It was almost midnight when I realized I'd left my presentation notes at home. Ryan had a key to my apartment. He offered to grab the folder and meet me back at the office. But when I called to check in, his phone went straight to voicemail. Then I tried Christina. Her phone went unanswered too. A cold, heavy feeling settled deep in my stomach. The kind of instinct you want to ignore because listening to it means your whole world is about to collapse. I drove straight to my apartment. Ryan's car was parked outside. So was Christina's. I walked in and found them on my couch in my living room. Her legs were stretched across his lap. His hand rested comfortably on her thigh. They weren't having sex. They didn't need to be. The intimacy in their posture, the way they looked at each other, told me everything I needed to know. First, they didn't even hear me come in. I stood there frozen as Christina said, "We just have to be careful until after the wedding. Once you're married, we'll figure it out. Sophia will be so busy with her career, she won't even notice." Ryan laughed. Actually laughed. "She's already busy," he said. "Last Tuesday she worked until 10. I told her I had a client dinner, and we had 3 hours at my place." The presentation folder slipped from my hands and hit the floor. The sound echoed through the room, breaking the moment. Christina's face went white. Ryan jumped up so fast he nearly knocked her over. They both started talking at once, excuses, explanations, justifications piling on top of each other. None of it mattered. I couldn't hear them over the roaring in my ears. I told them to get out. My voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that comes right before something inside you shatters completely. Christina reached for my arm. Sophia, please, she said. Let me explain. Just happened. We never meant for it to go this far. I pulled away from her touch. Both of you, I said. Ryan actually had the nerve to look hurt. Sophia, if you just listen. Get out, I said again. They left. I locked the door behind them, slid down onto the floor, and finally let myself break. The next morning I called off the wedding. Ryan sent flowers with a note begging for another chance. Christina sent 17 text messages, each one more desperate than the last. I blocked them both. I buried myself in work because work was the only thing that still made sense. Buildings had structure. They followed rules. You could take chaos and turn it into something solid and beautiful. People were different. People were chaos. My senior partner, Margaret Chun, noticed something was wrong during a meeting. After everyone else left, she asked if I was okay. I gave her the shortened version of the truth. She listened quietly, then said something I'll never forget. The best revenge is a life well lived, Sophia. Show them what they lost. I decided to take her advice. 6 months passed. I attacked my projects with an intensity that bordered on obsession. I won a regional design award. I was promoted to junior partner. At 34, I became one of the youngest partners in the firm's history. But San Francisco's architecture world is small and tightly connected. Avoiding Christina forever wasn't possible. We shared friends. We shared professional circles. She worked in interior design, so our paths crossed at industry events. The first time I saw her after everything happened was at a gallery opening. She wore a diamond on her left hand. Ryan's ring. My stomach twisted, but I kept my head high and walked right past her without a word. The second time was worse. It happened at a networking event for the city's annual charity gala. It was a black tie affair. One of those nights where everyone who mattered showed up to see and be seen. The event raised millions for children's hospitals. Our firm was a major sponsor, and I'd been chosen to represent us on the planning committee. That night, Christina cornered me by the bar. She didn't look like the woman I remembered. She was thinner, sharper, more polished in a way that felt deliberate. Her hair had clearly been done by a professional, and her dress was the kind that didn't come cheap. Ryan's money, I thought, the bitterness catching me off guard. Sophia, she said, her voice cautious, almost fragile. I've been hoping we could talk. There's nothing to talk about, I replied. I ordered a vodka tonic without turning to face her. I know you're angry, she said quietly. I'm not angry, Christina, I said. I'm finished. I took my drink and walked away, fully aware of her eyes following me as I left. I should explain that during those 6 months I'd started therapy. Dr. Martinez helped me understand something important. That Christina's betrayal hurt even more than Ryan's. With Ryan, I lost a relationship. With Christina, I lost 20 years of friendship. The person I trusted more than anyone had hugged me, asked about my wedding plans, smiled in my face, all while sleeping with my fiancé. That kind of betrayal cuts deeper. Dr. Martinez also helped me confront my issues with trust. She encouraged me not to close myself off completely, even though part of me felt like I'd never trust another person again. That's how Alexander entered my life. I met him 3 weeks before the charity gala, at a coffee shop near my firm. I was working on my laptop when he sat down at the table beside mine. His phone rang. He silenced it right away, apologized for the interruption, and went back to what he was doing. 15 minutes later, it rang again. This time, he looked irritated but answered it. I couldn't help overhearing parts of the conversation. Something about investors, a product launch, and timeline concerns. He sounded stressed but calm, explaining complicated technical issues in a way that made them sound simple. When he hung up, he noticed me watching. Sorry about that, he said. That's tech for you. The fires never stop. No apology needed, I said. Architecture's the same way. Deadlines don't care either. I nodded toward my laptop, which was covered in CD drawings. He smiled. It was an easy smile. Real. I'm Alexander Chun, he said. Sophia Ria, I replied. We started talking. Nothing serious at first, just casual conversation, but it felt effortless. He was funny without forcing it, intelligent without ever talking down to me. When he asked about my work, he actually listened. Not the polite nodding I was used to when I mentioned architecture, but real interest. 1 hour passed. Then 2. By the time we realized we'd been talking instead of working, the sun was setting outside. "This might be a little forward," he said, hesitating slightly. "But would you like to have dinner with me sometime? I promise I'll keep my phone on silent." I paused. Every instinct told me to say no, to protect myself, to avoid trusting anyone enough to get hurt again. But I heard Dr. Martinez's voice in my head. "Don't let fear write your story, Sophia." "I'd like that," I said, surprising even myself. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant in North Beach. Alexander showed up in jeans and a blazer, refreshingly underdressed compared to Ryan's constant need to broadcast status. We talked for 4 hours straight. He told me about growing up in San Jose, his parents' restaurant, teaching himself to code as a kid. He told me how he dropped out of Stanford at 22 to start his first company. "It failed spectacularly," he said, laughing. "I lost everything. Moved back in with my parents. Spent a year working in their restaurant trying to figure out where I went wrong." "So what did you do?" I asked. "I started another company," he said. "Used everything I'd learned. That one worked." He smiled, but there was no arrogance in it. Just humility. "I got lucky," he added. "I doubt luck had much to do with it," I said. He asked about my work, and before I realized it, I was telling him everything about the mixed-use development project. How it blended affordable housing with commercial space. How it focused on sustainable design. How it could shift the way people thought about urban development. "You light up when you talk about your work," he said. "It's beautiful." No one had ever said that to me before. We dated for 2 months before I told him about Ryan and Christina. We were having dinner at his place when my phone buzzed with a message from a mutual friend mentioning Christina's engagement party. I felt myself tense. "You don't have to tell me," Alexander said gently. "But if you want to, I'm here." So I told him everything. The betrayal. The humiliation. How I still flinched when I saw them at events. How I wasn't sure I'd ever fully trust someone again. Alexander listened without interrupting or judging. When I finished, he reached across the table and took my hand. "I'm glad they were stupid enough to lose you," he said. "Because otherwise, I never would have met you." It was exactly what I needed to hear. Around that time, I started noticing whispers at industry events. Ryan's law firm was struggling. They'd lost a major client in a high-stakes acquisition deal to a competitor. The rumor was that Morrison and Hayes had underestimated the opposition and been completely outplayed. I didn't think much of it, until Margaret pulled me aside one afternoon. "That acquisition Morrison and Hayes lost?" she said, giving me a knowing look. Alexander Chen's company was on the other side. She went on to explain that his in-house legal team had apparently dismantled their arguments. Ryan Mitchell had been lead counsel for Morrison and Hayes. My stomach flipped. Alexander had never mentioned it. "Would you want him to?" Margaret asked gently. "He probably didn't want you thinking he was dating you because of your ex." She was right. That night, I asked Alexander about it. He confirmed the deal but downplayed his role. "It was just business," he said. "I didn't even know Ryan was your ex until weeks later, when I Googled your firm and saw old engagement announcements." He hesitated before continuing. "I almost told you then. But I didn't want you to think I was using you, or that being with you had anything to do with revenge." He looked me straight in the eye. "You're not a pawn in anyone's game, Sophia. What we have has nothing to do with your past." I believed him. By then I knew his character. I knew his integrity. Alexander wasn't someone who played games. As the charity gala approached, I knew I needed a guest. Our firm had a table, and as a junior partner, I was expected to bring someone. I asked Alexander. He didn't hesitate for a second. "Should I wear a tux?" he asked. "It's black tie." "Then I'll wear a tux." He pulled me close, smiling. "I'm looking forward to showing you off." I didn't tell him that Christina and Ryan would be there. I told myself it didn't matter. That I was over it. That seeing them wouldn't affect me. I was lying to myself. The night of the gala, I spent 2 hours getting ready. I chose a midnight blue gown. My stylist said it gave off old Hollywood elegance. My makeup was professionally done. My hair swept up into a sleek, elegant updo. When Alexander arrived to pick me up, his eyes widened the moment he saw me. "You look stunning," he said quietly, almost to himself. I smiled. "You clean up pretty well too." He looked incredible in his tux, confident, composed, like a man who naturally belonged in rooms like this. The gala was held at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. The atrium had been completely transformed with dramatic lighting, lush floral arrangements, and round tables dressed in crisp white linens. A string quartet played softly in the corner while champagne flowed freely. The city's elite filled the room, air-kissing, laughing, and exchanging polished small talk. I spotted Christina the second we walked in. She was wearing red, a bold choice designed to draw attention. Ryan stood beside her, stiff and uneasy in his tux. The moment Christina saw me, her expression shifted. First surprise, then calculation. She leaned in and whispered something to Ryan before turning and walking toward us. "Sophia," she said brightly, her voice almost too cheerful. "Oh my God, you look amazing. It's been forever." I kept my expression neutral. "Christina." She smiled wider. "I've missed you so much." It was overdone. Performative. "I know things ended badly," she continued. "But I've been hoping we could reconnect. Life's too short to hold grudges, right?" Alexander's hand slid to the small of my back. Protective. Steady. Christina's eyes flicked to his hand, then back to me. "Aren't you going to introduce me to your date?" Before I could answer, Ryan stepped closer. His face was carefully blank, but I saw recognition flash across it when his eyes met Alexander's. They'd been on opposite sides of that acquisition deal. They knew each other. "Ryan Mitchell," he said, extending his hand. "I don't believe we've met formally." "Alexander Chun," Alexander replied. They shook hands. I watched Ryan closely. Was that surprise on his face? Or had he already known? Christina turned her attention back to me, still smiling. "So when did you two start dating?" she asked. "I had no idea you were seeing anyone, Soph." The nickname made my skin crawl. She hadn't earned the right to use it anymore. "We've been together a few months," I said calmly. "How lovely," she replied, her voice dripping with sweetness. "You know, Ryan and I are getting married in 2 months. Destination wedding. Italy." She lifted her left hand, making sure the ring caught the light. "We would have invited you, of course," she added. "But the guest list is just close friends and family." The message was clear. "You're not close. You don't matter." Alexander's hand pressed a little more firmly against my back, grounding me. "Congratulations," I said evenly. Christina's smile sharpened. "Thank you. I worried about you after everything happened," she said. "Being alone at your age can be difficult. The dating pool gets so much smaller after 35. Her gaze traveled over me, slow and assessing. "But it looks like you're doing okay," she added. "Bringing dates to events. That's good. It's important to put yourself out there, even if nothing serious comes of it." The implication was unmistakable. Alexander was temporary. Nothing serious. Certainly nothing that could compare to her engagement. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. "Christina, I'm just being honest," she said smoothly. "Sophia knows I've always cared about her happiness." She turned slightly toward Alexander, her expression sympathetic. "You have to understand," she said. "Sophia's always been very career-focused. It's admirable, really, but it can make relationships challenging. She works such long hours." Heat rushed to my face. She was trying to undermine me. Right in front of him, painting me as damaged, difficult, unlovable. Alexander's voice cut through the tension, calm and steady. "Actually," he said pleasantly, "I find Sophia's dedication to her work incredibly attractive." He didn't hesitate. "She's passionate, talented, and brilliant. I'm lucky she makes time for me between projects." Christina's smile faltered just slightly. "Oh, of course. I didn't mean." "And we're not dating casually," Alexander continued smoothly. "I'm in love with her. I have been for weeks. I was just waiting for the right moment to tell her properly." My heart stopped. He just said he loved me, right there in front of Christina and Ryan at this gala. Christina's face cycled through emotions. Shock, Disbelief. Then something sharp and ugly. How sweet, she said tightly. New love can feel so intense, can't it? I'm sure it feels very real. It is real, Alexander said quietly. He took my hand, threading his fingers through mine. Now, if you'll excuse us, he added. I believe they're calling everyone to their tables. He guided me away, leaving Christina frozen in place, her mouth slightly open. We reached our table before I could fully process what had just happened. Alexander pulled out my chair, then leaned down and whispered in my ear. I meant every word, he said softly. I planned to tell you over a private dinner this weekend, but watching her try to tear you down. He shook his head. I couldn't let her think she had any power over you. She doesn't. He looked at me. You're extraordinary, Sophia. I turned toward him, really looking at this man who had somehow slipped past every defense I'd built. I love you too, I whispered. His smile lit up his entire face. The rest of the gala blurred together. Dinner. Beaches. The charity auction. I was constantly aware of Christina watching us from across the room. Every time I glanced her way, she was staring. Ryan looked more uncomfortable by the minute. During the auction, Alexander bid on and won a luxury vacation package to Tuscany. For our honeymoon, he said casually, then froze. I mean, that was presumptuous. I haven't even. Ask me, I said. He blinked. What? Ask me properly later, I said. With a ring and everything. But I'm saying yes now. He kissed me right there in front of 200 people. I heard a gasp, felt the whispers ripple through the room. I didn't care. After the auction ended, I excused myself to use the restroom. Christina was waiting in the lounge area. I need to talk to you, she said, her earlier confidence cracking. Alone? I don't think so. Please, Soph, she begged. 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I nodded. Once we were alone, she spoke quickly. Alexander Chun, she said. You're dating Alexander Chun. I'm engaged to him, actually. Her face drained of color. Do you even know who he is? She demanded. My fiancé, I said calmly. He's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, she blurted out. Sophia, his company just closed a Series C funding round. He's one of the most eligible bachelors in Silicon Valley. Her voice climbed higher with each word. And you just met him in a coffee shop? Yes, I said simply. That's exactly what happened. She laughed, but it sounded strained and panicked. That's not fair. What's not fair? I asked. You were supposed to be alone, she snapped. You were supposed to realize what you lost. You were supposed to. She stopped herself, pressing her fingers to her temples. God, she said quietly. Do you have any idea what my life has been like? She took a shaky breath. Ryan's firm is bleeding clients. We've had to postpone the wedding twice because of money. He's stressed all the time. Angry. And he takes it out on me. That's not my problem, Christina, I said evenly. I know, she whispered, tears filling her eyes. I know it isn't. I really thought I was getting everything. The successful man. The money. The life I wanted. She gestured helplessly around us. And instead I got this. And you got Alexander Chun. Her voice broke. How is that justice? Justice? I repeated, staring at her. You destroyed a 20-year friendship and slept with my fiancé. You don't get to talk to me about justice. I never meant for it to happen, she said weakly. Yes, you did, I replied, my voice calm but unyielding. You chose this, Christina. Every time you flirted with him. Every time you showed up at my apartment. Every text you sent behind my back. Those were all choices. She wiped at her eyes, smearing her mascara. I was jealous, she admitted. You always had everything together. The career. The life. I wanted what you had. So you took it, I said. She let out a bitter laugh. And I got exactly what I deserved. A man who cheats. Who lies. Who only wanted me because I was convenient. She looked up at me. Do you know what he said last week? I didn't answer. He said he missed you. That you were smarter than me. More interesting. That he made a mistake. He did make a mistake, I said quietly. Just not the one he thinks. She blinked. What do you mean? His mistake was believing people are interchangeable, I said. That he could trade women in and out based on convenience. That isn't love, Christina. That's possession. She swallowed. And Alexander? She asked. What is he? He's a partner, I said. An equal. Someone who respects who I am and what I do. I looked at her then. This woman who had been my best friend for 20 years. I'm genuinely sorry your relationship isn't working out, I told her. But I can't fix it for you. And I can't go back to being your friend. Why not? She asked, her voice breaking. Why can't we move past this? Because I don't trust you anymore, I said. And without trust, friendship is just going through the motions. I left her standing there and walked back into the gala. Alexander took one look at my face and stood immediately. Are you okay? He asked. Can we go? I said softly. Of course. We said our goodbyes and left early. In the car, Alexander drove in comfortable silence, giving me space until I was ready. She wanted to know why I ended up with you, I finally said. What did you tell her? He asked. That you're my partner. That you respect me. I turned toward him. That you're nothing like Ryan. He reached over and took my hand. I'm sorry you had to see them tonight. I'm not, I said, threading my fingers through his. For months I'd been afraid of running into them. Afraid it would hurt. Afraid I'd feel like I lost something important. I squeezed his hand. But standing there tonight with your hand on my back, watching her try so hard to make me feel small, I realized I dodged a bullet. 2 bullets, actually, he said gently. The best thing they ever did was show you who they really were before you married into it. Exactly, I said, smiling. And if they hadn't blown up my life, I never would have been sitting in that coffee shop the day I met you. 3 months later we got married. It was a small ceremony, just close friends and family. Margaret Chun was there, beaming like a proud parent. My therapist sent a card that read, "Told you staying open was worth it." Christina sent an expensive set of crystal vases. I donated them to a charity auction. I didn't want reminders in my home. Ryan tried calling once a few weeks after the wedding. I didn't answer. Alexander asked if I wanted him to handle it. I said no. Some doors are meant to stay closed. The last I heard through mutual connections, Christina and Ryan did eventually get married. A small courthouse ceremony. Nothing like the Italian destination wedding she'd once planned. They moved to Sacramento for Ryan's new job at a smaller firm. I hope they found happiness, not for their sake but for mine. Because holding on to bitterness would only poison my own life. Dr. Martinez helped me understand that forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It means releasing the power their betrayal once had over me. It means choosing the future I'm building instead of the past they destroyed. I still see them occasionally at industry events. We exchange polite nods. Nothing more. Christina's expression always carries a hint of sadness, like she's mourning what we used to have. Maybe she is. But that friendship died the night I found them together. And you can't resurrect something that's already been buried. My life now is fuller than I ever imagined. Alexander and I just celebrated our first anniversary. We bought a house in Pacific Heights with a view of the Golden Gate Bridge. I made senior partner at my firm. We're talking about starting a family. Sometimes, late at night, I think about the woman who walked into her apartment and found her best friend with her fiancé. The woman who believed her life was over. I want to go back and tell her this wasn't the end. It was a beginning disguised as an ending. The best revenge really is a life well lived. Not because it hurts the people who wronged you, but because it proves they never had the power to break you in the first place. Christina taught me an important lesson, though not the one she intended. Some people treat relationships like competitions. There will always be someone who wants what you have. Not because it's better, but because it's yours. The difference between Christina and me is simple. I learned how to build my own happiness. She's still trying to steal someone else's. And honestly, I don't waste energy hating her anymore. Hatred requires emotional investment. And she's not worth it. Instead, I focus on gratitude. For Alexander, who loves me without keeping score. For Margaret, who gave me exactly the advice I needed when everything felt like it was falling apart. For Dr. Martinez, who helped me heal instead of harden. For the career I built with my own hands, through effort, persistence, and belief in myself. The woman I am today is stronger than the woman I was 3 years ago. Not because of what Christina did to me, but because of how I chose to respond to it. I chose growth instead of bitterness. Love instead of fear. My future instead of my past. That's the real victory. Not the penthouse. Not the successful husband. Not even the thriving career. Those are just bonuses. The true win is knowing I can trust my own judgment again. That I can open my heart without being frozen by fear. That I am not defined by their betrayal. I am defined by how I rebuilt myself after they tried to tear me down. And that's something Christina can never take from me. No matter how much she might wish she could.